It's really a pleasure in behalf of the working group on fieldwork to start this webinar today. The webinar is, as the title, of Fieldwork within the network, mapping, performing and sharing. We will have an all-day event, as you know. It's really a pleasure to gather these people all of you from the network, and to start the discussions as the second webinar on the series of 3 that we are going to have until the next couple of months. We will have now the introduction and the update of the developments in this cost action of writing urban places. We will start with the shares, the action shares, Klaas Gavik and Susana Oliveira, following working group leaders of communication, working group 1, theory, working group 2, and methodology, working group 3, and then with the field work of and the presentation of the program that will be developing all the day. So maybe we will start with Klaske and the update of the Writing Urban Places cost action. I will share the screen and okay, let's see. Can you see it? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So the floor is yours, Klaske.
Thank you, Luis. And welcome everyone to this online meeting of our cost action. It would have been fantastic to see you all in real life, but this is the situation today. We have a fantastic program for today that Luis and Slobodan prepared with 3 sessions or 3 parts with a number of presentations and statements and responses by members from across the different working groups in the network. If you can show the next slide, Luis.
Okay.
Yeah, and the next. So Susanna and myself will give you a brief update of what happened within the network so far and where we stand now. Our network, our cost action started in spring 2019. So we finished the first grant period. We have 4 years. And the first year we finished, and these are, I just wanted to show you a bit what we have done so far. So here you see the different places where we have been meeting within a network. In Brussels twice, actually. We had our kickoff meeting in Brussels and then working group meetings. We've been in Delft, Limerick, Almada, Portugal, in Belgrade. And unfortunately, our meeting in Tallinn, which was supposed to be a training school, had to be cancelled because it was the very start of the pandemic and all countries started to close very rapidly. Some of the first visible results of the network were, of course, the website that we got functioning in the first year, and the vademecum, the booklet in which we collected with working group 2, 77 minor terms from the working group 2, but also other members of the network. Theoretical concepts that we found were related to and inspiring for writing urban places. That booklet is available as a PDF on the website, and it is will be in print and in your mailbox very soon. The next slide, please. Other results that were maybe less visible were the possibility of granting some short-term scientific missions for participants in the network. Not all of them could be carried out this year because of the corona pandemic, but there were 3 that were carried out by Eleni Oralido. Was the first one in Barcelona. Second, or the next, sorry. Next was the short-term scientific mission by Carlos Machado and Maura in Paris, looking at these architectural magazines in Yves de Pierre, an archival research. The next one.
Yeah.
And the third one was Pablo Costa from the Lisbon School of Architecture, who visited the Netherlands for some field work. The next one. So the grant period too, we entered our new grant period with, of course, a lot of plans and ambitions that were not all possible to execute due to the corona pandemic. We had, of course, a number of meetings scheduled. Most important was the midterm conference and the management committee meeting that was supposed to be held last November in Porto. We planned a number of cross-working group workshops, which were now, of course, translated to these webinars. Then again, there was the possibility for STSMs, ITC grants. So these are grants to attend conferences for participants of the network. And there were a couple of dissemination aims, like journal issues produced by the working group, the repository of methods, and an exhibition of fieldwork projects from working group 4 that was supposed to be presented in the Porto meeting. Well, of course, I don't have to explain that all these physical meetings had to be postponed. So if we move to the next slide, we can see how our plans have been gradually changing. Unfortunately, hardly any physical meetings, but we hope to have our midterm conference in Porto in September if things get better in the world. And we still have our training school in Tallinn that was planned for last year, and we hope now to have that early summer, June or July. In terms of these cross working group webinars, we moved to online webinars. So we had the first one, the mini conference on theory on meaningfulness, appropriation and integration, organized by working group 2, November 17th. January 29th is today, of course, the webinar, and then there will be another one in March hosted by working group 3. The STSMs have been postponed because there's no possibility to travel at this moment, but the ITC grants are still open, so you can apply, because of course there are conferences that are continuing online, and we can the grants can cover the conference fees, for instance. Journal issues, repository of methods, and so on. The other ambitions are still standing, of course. The next one. I'll give the floor to Susanna to speak maybe a bit more about the composition of the network. Of course, after the first year, we have expanded a lot. So Susanna, please.
Okay, thank you, Kaske. Just a brief presentation on the data about the network. We are now 174 participants, of which 119 are management committee representatives. We have 35 countries so far. We still miss, by my account, Iceland, Sweden, and Moldova. But it's pretty well spread, as you can see. And they represent on the whole 101 research centers, institutes, universities, schools, etc. And also, you may change, Luis, please. I'm just going to show a few some data that we have not presented yet. This is results from the first progress report, and this refers only to management committee participants, not the whole network. This is in comparison with, especially with the average of all cost actions, the representativity of, in this case, the inclusiveness target countries. So we are in all aspects above the cost action average. And please, Louise, may you change the slide? And this is about early career investigators, which I cannot explain, the people younger than 40 and still without a PhD, still researching for their PhD. So we are also both in representation in terms of management committee and also in leadership roles, much above the average of early career investigation. Also in gender balance, these are three criteria that we had to evaluate in the first report. I presume that probably in the second one, we are also much above average on gender balance, both in management committee representation and also in women in leadership roles. So I think the number may have increased a little bit recently. Thank you. So now I think it will be Jorge. No, yes.
Yeah, Jorge from Working Group 1.
Thank you very much. I just want to make a short summary of what we've been up to. And maybe this also might be useful for maybe having some further suggestions from you in case you see that there are some possibilities for further communication. Can you please move on to the next slide? So the basic thing we've been doing is trying to keep everyone informed of what everybody else is doing. And we do so by our basic vehicle for communication has become our webpage. So in our webpage, we register all calls, all news, all events that we are aware of related to our action and a little bit beyond. And we have been issuing periodically a newsletter. Following one, this is a seasonal newsletter. So we have tried to produce one every more or less 3 months. And we are currently starting to think about our coming newsletter for the winter, most probably registering this event. Can you please move to the next one? Another thing we achieved in the past 10 months was consolidating our team page. Before we had just a very simple list of names, but due to some contact with other cost actions, we realized that it was very, very useful and very fertile to encourage new collaborations, to really get to know each other a little bit more, also given the fact that we cannot meet in person. So we collected, thanks to the different working groups, little biographies and images, very handsome images of everyone, where we can actually get to know who's who and what everybody's up to. And this is, of course, made in the hope that people will start looking into each other and try to find partners for also different collaborations other than the ones that are proper to the action. No? So that would be a nice outcome of this. Can you please move to and then hand in hand with that, we shifted had this bibliography since the beginning of our webpage, but it was a different bibliography. It was basically like a canon. No? So it was a list of well-known books and articles that everybody seemed to agree on as important. And then we said, like, well, why should we have that kind of canon that everybody knows in the first place? So we turned it around, and what we are promoting now is that each of us contributes to this bibliography, so we're all able to share things that we've been doing before joining the action and while we're in the action that are related to our topic. So this really should become a kind of database where everybody can check each other out and say, hey, well, I find this person interesting. They're working more or less in a topic that I can relate to. And we can go to the bibliography and say, well, actually these articles that this person wrote 5 years ago are super interesting for my own research. I think if we can achieve that, well, the whole purpose of the action also will be very well served. We are inviting, this is open, completely open all the time. You just have to write us with a request to post some of your output on this bibliography, and we will do so. We of course encourage you to please follow this, let's say strictly in Chicago style formatting. No? So we don't have to format every single reference that we receive. So if you're strict on that, we can immediately post your submissions of work that you've been doing. Can you please move to the next one? And then more specifically talking about the output of the action as a whole, we have this section where we are uploading the documents that can be digitally shared and downloaded by everyone. No? So now we have these two. We hope to have soon an upcoming new version of the Writing Place Journal. There's a document from Working Group 2 regarding the previous mini conference, and all these things that are, let's say, the bulk of what we produce as a group is uploaded here. So you can also share it with friends and consult it and so on. Can you please move on? Besides that, we have a list of all the minutes of all our meetings. So this is important that everybody's aware that every discussion that has been had by group members is registered, and how to follow, let's say, on the discussions is in the minutes. Can you please move on? And then we have our Blackboard, where besides the output, other working documents, videos, let's say more bulky documents are posted also as working documents that can be consulted. This is not to work on, but to be consulted by any action member that so wishes. Can you please say? And then, as a result of the previous conference, we discovered that we had actually opened a YouTube channel, which we never used. We just had links to previous videos from some activity. So we used it, and we are very glad that this webinar is being recorded, because now we can really produce videos, and we encourage all working groups to think about videos as a very effective way of not only communicating, but researching. No, it's a very good way to carry out interviews, to do field work, to have smaller discussions, in the knowledge that we can post these videos on our YouTube channel, and they become then available not only to us, no? They become available to a broader public, which I think is interesting. I will touch upon that towards the very end of what I'm saying. Can you please move on to the next one? And then we have our social media, which is let's say like a dissemination strategy by means of which we replicate everything we post on our webpage in terms of news, calls, and events is immediately replicated. We have an additional Instagram account. I know it's here even. So we have this for LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook accounts, and then well, anything that appears so we invite you to, of course, subscribe to these accounts, to follow them, and this is another way in which you can very quickly be aware of anything that is published. Of course, we invite you to consult the web page and to understand that this web page is a vehicle for all of us to communicate. So this is once again an invitation. Anyone who has anything that they believe should be communicated to the whole action, well, just let us know, and we're very happy to, as those of you who have shared the material with us know that this is very easy, very quick. It's not a problem, it's not a burden. Information we receive in one day can be quickly published. Okay, and the next one, please. And then we move on to our plan. So this is what we've been up to, and following the example set by other working groups, we're thinking about the need to consolidate our very small, we're the smallest working group of all the action. So we're trying to consolidate ourselves a little bit better, clarify our role, and well, most probably what we will do is follow on your example and have an internal meeting towards the possibility of an event where we also convoke the whole action to discuss the way we are communicating and the possibilities it offers for our research. we also started, when the Corona pandemic started, to open calls for collaboration. Many of you contributed this kind of blog post entries about the distance narratives of the European city, and that worked very beautifully. This never stopped, but of course the interest went down a little bit, and we want to open that up again with regular calls. However, we do not want to compete with this kind of events either. So we have to figure out ways in which we can invite people to contribute and nonetheless not overshadow the bigger events that I think are also very important. And then we have to start thinking, moving towards the second half of the game, let's say. All this that I showed is fundamentally internal communication. No? So we're communicating with each other. But now, and I think this is the perfect moment to talk about this, because now that we're starting to talk about field work, well, field work already puts us literally on the field. So ideally, this is a starting point for an important, I think, crucial discussion, which is to start thinking about how we move from communicating with ourselves to communicating outside, and this includes thinking about external media in these mid-sized European cities, thinking about government, associations, communitary organizations, institutions in general that we would like to communicate with. We already have some insight into the ways in which we would like to communicate, but you, as Action members, will hopefully have a clearer picture of who would we want to communicate with, given the objectives and the goals of our action, in terms of contributing to society. So that's it from us, and thank you very much.
Now we will have the update from Working Group 2 from Angeliki and Sonia.
Thank you very much, Luis. Hello, everyone. We are very happy to see everybody, even if it is in this virtual form. First of all, many thanks to Luis and Slobodan, as well as the rest of our network members who are participating today and thus making this event possible. At the beginning, we also would like to extend special thanks to our Working Group 2 members who have expressed a great interest in participation, and we're looking forward to more possibilities for active work and collaboration in the future within the whole network. We would like to briefly update the network members of 2 activities of Working Group 2, which are underway as a follow-up to the online conference in November 2020. Luis, next slide. Thank you. Perfect. We have diligently been working on an electronic booklet in PDF format to accompany the recordings of our online November conference, which has been published on our YouTube channel. And this electronic booklet should be used as a guide to accompany these recordings. The booklet is structured similarly to the conference, as you can see on the title page. It has 3 major parts, one on meaningfulness, the other on appropriation, and the third one on integration. And as usual for small publications, it contains an introduction and a conclusion, and this can be seen on the next slide. Here you see the contents of the booklet, so the 3 sections. And in each section, we have published the talks in written form. Next slide, please. Thank you. The introductory part leads into the discussion on the 3 major terms, and each part that follows contains texts from presenters at the conference, text by keynote speakers, as well as those who gave statements and responses. Next, please. Additionally, at the beginning of each section, we have introduced the talks individually, and at the end also tried to summarize the open discussions we all participated in after each session. Since we envisaged that the booklet serves as a guide to accompany the recordings, we provided at the beginning of each talk the minutes and seconds of the beginning and end of the recording, so the reader can really orient him or herself within the recordings. Next, please. On this and the next slide, here you see the examples of written keynotes, statements, and responses. You can show the next one as well. And most of them are also illustrated very, very beautifully. Next, please. We have shown the structure of the booklet on the example of the first section, meaningfulness. And so the next two sections, appropriation and integration, have the same structure basically. And since we also wanted the booklet to remind us of some key points, we concluded with the summary of all discussions and questions we raised on that day. We also devised a couple of paragraphs to serve as concluding thoughts. Next slide, please. The booklet is almost finished, and we kindly thank Willy for the wonderful design and also Klaske for very helpful feedback. We hope to distribute the booklet in the very near future. You should be receiving it by email in PDF format. The second activity is our plan, basically. So this is the booklet is what we have been doing so far. And this last one is the activity we plan to do. And we also started going through with it. So it is basically an open call for contributions, for publications, for the next issue of Writing Plays Journal. This is the issue 6. Which the four of us will be editing. So Klaske, Susanna, Angeliki, and myself. The call is posted to our Actions website, and we kindly invite original research in form of either individual papers as well as collaborative contributions, both from the network members, but also from outside the network. So please, everyone, feel free to distribute the call to your colleagues and whomever you think might be interested. The deadline for contributions is the 15th of March, and the papers are expected to be about 2,500 words, and all the other details can be found in the call. Of course, if you have any questions about either of the two announcements we made, please feel free to contact us per email anytime. And we're very much looking forward to your general contributions and the feedback on the booklet once you have received it. And for the conclusion of my talk, we wish us all a very productive and enjoyable conference. I would just like to invite Angeliki if she would like to add anything.
Perfect, Sonia. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we will have the update of Working Group 3 from Lauren and I don't know, Carlos. Lauren?
Thank you very much, Luis and Slobodan. We are very pleased to be here at this so promising webinar. And we have the pleasure, me and Carlos, to show you a brief of the activity of Working Group 3. These materials have been prepared by Carlos, and I would like to publicly thank to Carlos for giving such a wonderful momentum to Working Group 3. We can pass to the next slide, please. And I would like to let you know with great pleasure that we are approaching the moment of closing the editorial work on the 5th issue of Writing Plays Journal. It will be an issue dedicated to methods, and for this we have carried an open call with abstracts, and then we have received reviewed the abstracts. After that, we have received the articles. They have passed a very thorough process of peer reviewing, a very tough one in my opinion, and we have selected quite a small number of articles, but they are articles of substance, and they are going to give this number very high academic standard, in my opinion. Also, we have included, and Class K has conducted this interview with Alberto Perez Gomez, and the interview is going to be published into the journal. It was an extraordinary experience from my perspective, being together and asking questions. Professor Alberto Perez Gomez, and I'm sure that this quite extensive interview is going to be one very important and also funny part of this issue. And we can pass to the next slide, please. In the same time, we have organized a call for a repository of methods, because we have many members. And not only the members were interested in methods and contributing with methods. And in this respect, we have created a call for methods. And I'm going to give the floor to Carlos for giving more ground in this endeavor that we have carried, creating this repository of methods. And please also inform the other members of the action how this idea of the repository of method has evolved during the period of actually receiving methods and ideas on this. Please, Carlos.
Well, thank you so much, Lauren, and also I'd like to enthusiastically thank Louise and Slobodan for having us today here in this second mini conference online. Well, as the repository of methods had actually been going as a call for open to all working group 3 members, but in a way we decided to make it explode and get into something that could engage more participation from all the members of the action and beyond. Luis, can you please move to the next slide? So we organized a series of working sessions, informal working sessions among colleagues from our working group, in order to, in a way, start thinking about how to make this possible, what format to give it, how to get people take part in this, and to decide on which steps to take. Next slide, please. And so here you can see a quick scroll of a Padlet device that we actually assembled in order to make this open call that we had going until the end of last year, which invited people to come forward with wild ideas, suggestions, methods that were actually tested, and others that were simply experimental and that we hardly could call them actual methods. And this was for us very challenging, but also very pleasing to see that many people took part. We had around 60 entries. So we are now actually diving into this material and looking at ways of making it become what originally was called the repository of methods for writing urban places, but will likely become something else. Next slide, please. And so, although we are still thriving in assembling this output, it will be the basis for our forthcoming webinar for Wednesday, the 3rd of March. So please put it on your agendas. It would be great to have you all on this next webinar, which will, and this is a bit to unveil and to sparkle your attention, we'll have a slightly different format, probably using the one of Pechakusha or Pechakucha, as in order to easily have a series of participations from all the action members. Well, can you please move to the next slide? And this, I'll give Lauren back the floor.
Thank you, Carlos. Meanwhile, of course, a part of being members of Working Group 3, all the members have undertaken extensive professional work and participating in other forms of activities inside the cost action, and maybe the most important moment has already been evoked here. It was the Working Group 2 webinar, Meaningfulness, Appropriation and Integration. And we have had respondents from Working Group 3, like Dalia Miriam Bernard and Victoria Bogdanova. And we participate also in this webinar. These webinars, we consider that they are very important in order to link the working groups and to create the common ground which is so necessary in order to link theory with methods and with fieldwork. And part of that, I personally have been very pleased and also honored with Carlos taking two important European prizes in late 2020. It's Prize Tavora in Portugal for the project of starfish, the fortifications in continental Portugal, and another very important prize of the Italian National Council of Architects, which shows that theoretical activities of our members is producing wonderful effects also on the professional plan, also in the field work. And congratulations, Carlos, for these prizes. We can move to the next slide, which is a presentation of our forthcoming activities. And since we are going to talk about the midterm conference in Porto, I am very eager to hear from Carlos the news.
Well, just unfortunately, the news aren't as good as we'd like them to be. So as you know, Portugal is a bit under, and well, the entire Europe with this pandemic. So we regret that had to postpone our midterm conference to September. But Working Group 3 members will still be actively engaged in organizing both the training school in Tallinn in June or July, and in this this midterm conference, where we do hope and enthusiastically hope that we might finally meet again in person. Thank you so much, and this is all from our part. Have a great day.
Thank you a lot, Luis and Slobodan, for inviting us to your webinar. And we have members, Working Group 3 members, who joined and are going to be respondents. And we are very eager to see the development of this. And with no other further discussion, we thank you again, and please lead this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, and for the update of the events and activities inside the Writing Urban Places cost action. Well, in terms of the update of the Working Group 4, mainly we are on the spot. We are in this webinar. And what we would like to do is somehow to, because it's this webinar, it's the outcome of the activities developed in Working Group 4 on fieldwork. and we are in a webinar, but somehow there's a somehow a very troubled path until we got to today's webinar. We have to say that this is the second webinar in a series of 3 organized by the different working groups. We had the excellent working group 2 webinar, Meaningfulness, Appropriation and Integration of In-City Narratives. This second webinar that we are hosting today, it's on the fieldwork, and somehow we have to say that this is the a response to the current context of the pandemic, and to maintain the activities inside the network alive. This second webinar was somehow this webinar today is the consequence of already, it seems a long, well, it's not that long, but it seems a long way in all this pandemic situation that started somehow in Almada, and in the first call that Working Group 4 made inside only the Working Group 4 on fieldwork, in the pool of projects that we discussed in Almada, and somehow from these first quite informal presentations that we had, we decided to somehow extend the discussions of the fieldwork to all the network and to all working groups. So we made a second call for an exhibition to be held on the midterm conference in Porto. As we know, that has been postponed now, hopefully to happen in September, but somehow it changed our response as a working group in terms of the exhibition has been postponed, but the activity somehow derived today in this webinar and in an online meeting in which the results of this second call somehow will be discussed in this kind of more distanced situation. The title of the webinar, the fieldwork within the network, is just what it is. It's really a survey of fieldwork within all the network of writing urban places, and we'll hope that will open up and guide the discussions on fieldwork, connecting and integrating all the different working groups for the next phases and the second part of this cost action. Well, this second call that we made for the exhibition really was at a deadline on the beginning of July in 2020. And it was already, as we can see from the dates, in the context of the pandemic, and was postponed to the end of July, still thinking about an exhibition and how an exhibition could enhance the discussions on fieldwork in the midterm conference. Well, the call received 21 proposals, and the jury, that was mainly the core group, selected 16 projects that responded to the conceptual and thematic framework of writing urban places, mainly obviously the thematics of meaningfulness, appropriation, and integration. With this postponement of the midterm conference, we decided to make a selection of the selection of the 16 projects and try to organize. That's mainly the result of the webinar that we are hosting today. In terms of the thematics of the Writing Urban Places network, and try to discuss them before really the exhibition. So the exhibition hopefully will happen somehow on September. But for now, we are starting the discussion previously in this webinar. Well, and somehow that's how we arrive at the event, today's event. We, in the organization of the webinar, we tried to organize the several proposals that we received in the call, and to organize with what we called actions. That's the mapping, the performing, and the sharing, and somehow try to launch the hypothesis of connecting these actions with the themes of the Writing Urban Places cost action, which is meaningfulness, appropriation, and integration. It's very important to know that these connections that we try to do with the actions and with the teams are obviously not closed, nor they are fixed categories. And we assume a lot of transversality and contamination between them, but somehow it's an hypothesis that we are going to try to challenge them in the presentations and the responses that we organize for today's event. Somehow we have to say that this kind of organization between these three different actions are obviously our understanding of the proposals that we received and the organization of this material in in three different categories, and try to discuss them into these three categories, which are obviously, as you see here, the mapping in relation to meaningfulness, the performing in relation with appropriation, and the sharing in relation to the integration. Well, in terms of the webinar and the structure of the webinar and how the issues are going to be developed during our today's event, we decided to organize the sections by these three thematics, and we tried to make an integration of the several working groups, mainly working group 2 on theory and working group 3 on methods, and try to make the presentations of the 12 of the projects that were selected for the exhibition, making the presentation of 2 projects with 1 respondent from the other working groups for each one of the 3 parts or 3 sessions of today's event, and organizing it in 2 projects with 1 respondent and more 2 projects and more 1 respondent for each one of the sections. In the end, at 5 o'clock today, we will have a roundtable in which we want to wrap up somehow the discussion on fieldwork. It's something quite done on the spot, so it's a kind of discussion, a free and open discussion of the webinar, even if in an informal way, and trying to open up some lines of development for the Writing Urban Places in terms of fieldwork for the next phases. So we have really to deeply thank everybody who is going to participate and attend today's webinar. It's obviously from their generous contribution and active involvement that this today's event is possible, and we really have to thank all the responses, positive responses that we have from the presenteers and from the respondents to somehow start the debates today around the fieldwork. So I don't know, it's 9:25. We will start at 9:30. Slobodan, should we stop just for 5 minutes, or maybe?
Yes, we have. I think we have 5 minutes just
Yeah.
to have a really small break, and just to, after this really extensive explanation at the beginning. So yes, in 10:30 Central European time, we can start as we planned, and I will take the lead on part one. Then I really don't have anything to add at the moment, because you have, all of you have really nice presentation of the ongoing work. So see you in 4 minutes now. Yes.